The Cultural Council's mission is to nurture, promote, and support a healthy, diverse, and inclusive cultural sector so that the arts and culture are a part of everyday life for everyone. We invite listeners to discover Florida's cultural capital online at palmbeachesculture.com. Welcome to the ArtiGras Podcast, where we dive into all things art and culture of Palm Beach County and a little beyond. I'm your host, Sarah LaPierre, and I'm here today with a very special guest. Her name is Pranoo Kumar, and she is an educator, an activist, and the founder and owner of a very special bookstore, Rohi's Readery. We have a lot of great questions. I'm excited to get into it. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And I love that, when we have our guests on, everybody makes a mark on the canvas. Mm-hmm. I love that. Look at this. This is incredible. This is the logo right here.
Just a little bit.
It's so good. She's awesome.
Powerful.
Yes.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, so many questions to get into, but I want a little bit of background first. So I know that the Readery is named after your grandmother, who was also an activist in India. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that influenced your path and how, it led you to where you are with the Readery?
Yes. So my grandmother, Annama in Hindi, her name was Rohini Rao, and she was an education activist. So she fought for children's rights. She fought for the emancipation of women's rights and during colonized rule in India. And so, and my dad, one of her children, grew up with 4 sisters. So she was a busy woman, moving around, just really advocating for her community while also taking care of her family and speaking for unapologetic truth of what the community needed. And so anytime I think about the strength within the ancestors, those who've come before us, I really channel that energy into the Readery because I know that's something that she did.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And tell us a little bit about the background. You started in education. You've lived kind of all over the country in all corners, right?
Yes.
And then eventually you came to Florida. Mm-hmm. And then tell us about the beginnings of, that journey and what started you in education, where that kind of passion came from, and then how that brought you to Florida, to Palm Beach County.
Yeah. So education, I always say teaching saved my life because I sort of grew up in multiple different places, but I grew up with the immigrant experience, moving from India to the Deep South, specifically Texas, and really experienced a tremendous amount of discrimination, racism, not only from my experience, but also witnessing it from my parents. And I don't think I realized it at the time, but it was an erosion of my self-worth and identity and lack thereof, and not seeing myself represented in curriculum and even outside spaces, advertisement and things like that. And anytime, India was even talked about, it was either Mother Teresa or Mahatma Gandhi, right? And so I just didn't really have a strong sense of self. And that coupled with this idea of trying to assimilate to my surroundings, because once again, with that immigrant mentality, my parents were doing the best that they could, but it was very much, how do you acclimate to your surroundings? How do you keep your head down? How do you stay out of any type of challenge or anything like that? And so when I started college, I actually was on the pre-med track and got my master's in medical sciences, started med school, and then very quickly said, this is not for me. And I think that was very hard for my family because they sort of only knew lawyer, doctor, engineer, pick one, figure it out.
Right. This is one of the known safe career paths that you could have and be, respected. And yes, it would be challenging, but it's a known comfortable as opposed to an unknown.
Exactly. And really thinking about now I can see my family's perspective of we just want you to be taken care of. We want you to make sure that you are going a quote unquote safe path, right? But that coupled with just, once again, even in college, feeling that lack there of identity, and once again, finding myself in waves of assimilation, it really did have a profound effect on my social, emotional, mental well-being. And so I ended up leaving medical school, starting to work at a nonprofit, and then the recession hit. And I was thinking, I'm just getting started, and this happens. So I packed my bags, I moved to New York, and was working 4 part-time jobs, realizing it's very much who you know over what you know, and then was given this golden opportunity of a career-changing fellowship for those wanting to go into teaching. And that right there changed the trajectory of my life. That's where I realized, oh, I can work with children in a different capacity. I can contribute in ways where I'm also learning and unlearning about myself too. So that's sort of what led me to this field of education.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And I always love hearing people start a path, realize that this is not for me, and make that shift, because it can take a lot of courage to do that. But there's no right or wrong time in your period of life that you can say, this isn't for me anymore. It was great for however long, or it wasn't. And just make that turn into a different direction, even if it's an unknown one. And that's awesome that a fellowship was that kind of catalyst. That's so exciting.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. And I taught in the South Bronx in Harlem. And once again, those babies, the community, the families took me in as their own. And I saw such a sense of pride in the culture, in the identity, and the background of my students that were from Puerto Rico, from the Dominican, from Senegal, from Ghana, all of these different places, and just had such pride in who they were. And that also sparked me to learn more about myself, feel more empowered in my sense of self, and then take that learning and see how can I continue that and carry it on in the world of education no matter where I go.
Yeah, so this is where Rohi's Readery comes in. I mean, later down the line, right? But you have this beautiful bookstore in downtown West Palm Beach, or that's where it's been for the past, is it 4 years?
3.5 years.
Okay, yes. I knew we
very close.
Yeah,
so close.
We're right around.
Hopefully.
But tell us what it means to be a social justice-driven children's bookstore. What does that look like when people walk in? What's the experience?
Yes. So my hope is that anytime someone walks into the Readery, that they feel seen, valued, loved. They feel a sense of empowerment in who they are, that they can come in and also find community, because moving from New York, and then after I moved to Seattle, and then before I moved here, every single time it was, how do I find community? How do I find a place where I feel safe and can talk about all things? And so the Readery is really meant to support that for all ages. And even though people see it as a children's bookstore, what we found is that there was a need for adult programming too. So we have something for every age, whether you are a child or wanting to connect with your inner child, heal the inner child. My goal is that you can come in and just sit, breathe, and be, and know that there is someone that cares for you.
That's an incredibly important space to have. It was very exciting to see it. I got to, be kind of in the City Place downtown West Palm space when it was starting, and you were just kind of building out this space. And it was just beautiful to see people start to realize what's here and where they can, be found, recognize themselves, see themselves, express, freely. Celebrate their culture. It was just, it's still really special. we're going to talk more about the Readery, but I also want to know a little bit more about some of the experiences that you've had, like being a speaker on TEDx. You were talking about the power of critical literacy.
Yes.
What was that experience like for you?
Sometimes I wonder how did I get here? Like, what happened?
So you're up on the stage. Yeah, there's a spotlight on you. You have like a little Britney Spears microphone.
Yes, and I break out into dance. No, just kidding. No, it's such a surreal experience, and I was so grateful for the opportunity, because one thing that I can talk about all day is the power of critical literacy, and the idea that when we expose our children to, and even adults, to content that is reflective of their identities or wanting to learn about the stories of another, how that really allows you to stay engaged as a reader. It actually states, there's a statistic that says that you are 500% more likely to stay engaged as a reader at a young age if you're exposed to texts that are reflective of the things you're interested in, what you look like. And so that really, there for the TED Talk, was a big thing for me, is how can I make sure that we're getting this message of identity-driven literature to really create conversation, but also allow children to feel empowered in what they're learning and make change in the world.
Yeah. And that they continue to be driven to do that, and that it's not limiting, it's expanding.
Yes.
So
yes.
I also, I do a little bit of research. I mean, I've met you, we've known each other through the community, but I do a little bit of research before we come on here. Yeah. And I got to say, I was looking at your LinkedIn and I'm like, wow, these are a lot of accolades and awards this lady has won. So impressive. Was there anything on that list that really stands out as a moment that you're particularly proud of in your career?
Oh my goodness. I think one of the things that I feel really grateful for is just the opportunity that has involved teaching, or any of the experiences, whether it was being on the Gates Foundation U.S. K-12 contributor, or being in a space with other, incredibly invested educators through the NAACP grant. Any opportunity for me to learn and engage in those spaces has been just filled with gratitude, been met with gratitude. Yeah. So, but I think about those things, and it's funny because when I put them, at first I was feeling very like, do I do this? Do I not? And one of my most amazing mentors, who is a woman of color, actually said to me, do not dim your light in the things that you've achieved, because you are actually acknowledging the ancestors and you're acknowledging the hard work. Those things are not just you. That is because of a collective. That's a collective of community. Chills. Yeah, a collective of family members, a collective of those you don't even know that have been fighting for you to be able to be in spaces to share more about the work. Yeah. So,
and you get to say, and should say, look what we did.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that you acknowledge that. It's important to, for that purpose and for yourself. There's no reason to dim your light for others or for yourself. You have to look in that mirror and appreciate like all the things that you've been able to do and accomplish and work through, among a lot of challenges.
Work through.
What does it, I'm just curious, what does a day in the life look like? Are you at, I know you're currently working on plans for a new location, right? Which we're going to talk about.
Yes.
So what mode are you in right now?
Oh, I feel like my wheels are just always spinning, and I don't know what I would do without my planner. I literally have just old school written notebook planner, all the things, because I feel so, I keep saying grateful, but I feel so grateful that I get to do the things that I love in the ways that I want to authentically. So whether it is going to my two littles, I have a just turned 4-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, and I get to teach to every single classroom. I get to do a story time in some type of justice work activity. And then I get to go to the bookstore and I get to, do inventory on brand new books that have just come out that have also allowed me to unlearn and, kind of decolonize some of my own biases and things. But then I get to work on curriculum and collaborate with a school that is interested in project-based learning around learning about local Black history. And so I feel like every day it changes, but I think taking that step in saying, these are the things I want to do, these are the things I feel passionate about, and having taken the time to really understand each space has now given me this opportunity to sprinkle a little bit here and there versus being in the classroom, all day, which is also a gift, but I get to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I love that. So how have you seen, from when the bookstore first opened, how have you seen the community respond? And have there been any surprises along the way of how things developed based on, well, people are really responding to the events, or, if you have authors come in, is there anything that, you've kind of gone in different directions because of how people responded to them?
I think the Readery is really, at least I try with the community to really ensure that we are doing what the community wants. So when it comes to our community programming, our free educational programming, thinking about, what types of early childhood classes do you want? Or I noticed that there's a lot of educators coming into the bookstore. Do we want to create an Educators for Justice program? And then collaborating with community members who actually have expertise in that space or have had experience in that space and bringing that to life. Because I think that is where we are strongest, is when we're really leveraging the community and honoring the gifts that everyone brings to the table, and then saying, okay, how do we make this come alive? So that has been a big thing, just seeing the community say, kind of take it on as their own baby too, and say, we want this or we want that, or have people coming in and saying, I heard that you do education consulting. We actually are looking to revamp our game room in our hotel. So would you be interested in doing a library in that space? Would you be interested in doing a bedtime series that we could put on an app for our guests? So getting really creative has been really, really fun, and just kind of being open to all of the possibilities with what the community wants.
Yeah, being willing to take that response and shift with it and grow with it. Yeah, it's beautiful to let people have a sense of ownership and develop a sense of pride and know that they're a part of what you're putting out, and they have, a new control in what comes into their community and how their children get to participate and grow and develop.
Yeah, I think the idea of also staying really true to our mission and vision, and that's something as an educator, a new entrepreneur, just a Libra, all the things have
sense of justice.
Yes, exactly. Right? Yeah, that too. But really staying true to the mission and knowing that, what are the things you say yes to, and what are the things that you may say no to, but you may know someone else who is really great equipped, right? And how that also plays such a huge part in how we find our sense of ownership and community.
To be honest, it's always one of my favorite things to do as an artist, not to directly say no to someone, but to say, I'm so glad you thought of me for that. It's not particularly what I do, but I know at least 5 incredible people who are perfect for this project, event, whatever it is.
Right.
I love when we can do that.
There's just such good work being done in Palm Beach County, and there's such innovative and creative things happening. And so if there's ever opportunities where we can show off something that is happening in our community by an incredible community member, I think just to your point, it's like the best part of being in community.
Yeah. So you talked about the community, you're getting ready, you're developing this new location for the Readery. This is a larger square footage. It's in a different area. You're going to be able to, branch out and connect with more people. What are you, hoping for with this new step? And can you tell us about how this came about, how the new location came about?
Yeah.
Those dinner reservations and tea times will have to wait, because there's an art-filled paradise beyond these beaches. A mecca of masterpieces, spectacular sights by day and night. A cultural capital that's calling your name. See so much more than you came for in the Palm Beaches.
The holidays can be a festive time, but for many of us, they can be extremely stressful. That's why it's important to strategize and practice some simple self-care habits to keep yourself physically and mentally healthy. For example, maintaining a healthy sleep schedule, getting regular exercise, and avoiding excessive alcohol and sugar are all great habits to start with. It can also be easy to get overscheduled and overwhelmed. Remember, it's okay to say no to things that may stop you from sticking to your own healthy habits. Also, the new year is a great time to make sure you're up to date with your preventive care and annual medical exams. Overall, practicing these simple healthy habits will offer you a framework for a balanced holiday season. Happy holidays.
This Medical Minute is brought to you by Tampa General Hospital and USF Health, Morsani College of Medicine at the University of South Florida. Learn more at tgh.org/the Palm Beaches.
It felt like Shark Tank. It was such a new experience for me. So it started out with the Community Redevelopment Agency in the city of West Palm put out an RFP for those interested in purchasing one of the Styx Promenade properties in the historic Northwest District. And so I learned about it through an amazing woman, Sabile, and when attending a art event where they unveiled Nikisha Duret's Genius Loci, which is this beautiful structure that is right in front of the historic Sunset Lounge. And so when I learned about it, I decided to go take a look. The buildings were open, so I just took a little look.
Have a little look.
Right, just a little look. And I am such a believer of energy. And I walked in and just felt this really loving, powerful energy, and also coupled with knowing the history of the Northwest District, just felt such alignment. So I applied. I remember, I think it was December 5th I found out, and then the deadline was December 21st. So I asked for a lot of help around how to put together a business plan, a proposal, all the things. And then we found out, we made it through the round. We ended up meeting in front of a technical review committee meeting of people who were made up of the city of West Palm and historic Northwest District residents. There were 12 businesses. They asked us questions over 4 hours. And then right at the end, they voted on the top 4. And then we had a meeting in front of the city commissioners and the mayor. We presented, and then they chose the top 2 because there were 2 properties. And then we presented a couple more times around community engagement, financial plans, all the logistical pieces. And now we are in the final stages, and it has been so exciting. It has been such a rewarding, very much learning experience for me. But it's also given me an opportunity to step out of my comfort zone again, kind of in that first year teacher mode of the business piece of it. Sure. But it has been so loving. The community, Dr. Wynn, who is the cultural consultant with the CRA, who is a 5th generation Northwest District resident, has been so integral in my learning, giving me walking tour of the space. connecting with Mr. Jones, who is at UB Kinsey, which is an elementary arts school, incredible school. There's just been so many players that have kept me going when the challenging moments arise. So yeah.
And now what stage of development is it in? So are you moving in? Are you, I don't know when the timeline of you being, up and celebrating that it's real, it exists in real life again.
It's been so interesting because in my mind, and this is where the learning comes again, my mind was, okay, we won the property, now we just have to buy it and then we're gonna move in. And there's a lot more steps I've learned. So we literally just closed on we finalized our small business loan.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a big step.
Yeah, that was very exciting. I was very ooh, this is really happening. But we just completed that. We are now going through all of the inspections and hopefully closing on the property next week and moving in immediately with a soft opening November 15th, but we'll do a grand opening, I believe, in 2025. But and now we also have the nonprofit, so we're going to be just sort of reintroducing everyone to the work that we're doing through the bookstore, but now also the nonprofit.
Wow, yeah, that's going to be a big year.
Yes,
I'm excited.
Me too. Me too.
So I like always the art of making spaces. And when I first, I think the first time I saw the Readery, I was just peering through the window because it wasn't open yet. I was just so excited. Yeah. But, you created something really magical, not just with the content, of course, that's there and the energy and the people who are in the space, but, the way you lay a place out, the way you have, seating and furniture and lighting and colors on the wall and representation of flags and things like that, things that just make people feel welcome. Is there an aspect of the art of making this new building that you're really excited about?
Yes, I am so excited that we are going to have now 2 spaces. So this is a 2-building property. So we'll have our flex space where we're really hosting all of our free educational programming, our panel conversations, all types of things. And then we have the second space, which is the retail space that will host all of the books, our beautiful inclusive mural, continuation of all the beautiful artwork, but now we also have outdoor space.
Yeah, I love that.
So one of the things, I recently went to Be Well of Palm Beach County, their youth rally, and in that space, it was very much youth-led, teen-led, and one of the things that came up was our local teens saying that they wish they had more green spaces and opportunities for gardening. And so what we plan on doing is using those outdoor courtyard spaces into and hopefully partnering with FAMU because they have co-op extension gardens in the area and doing a pop-up garden where people of all ages can invest in the fruit, the vegetables, the herbs, all the types of things, but also just have a space that is a green space that they've created. So that's definitely one thing I'm very excited about, but really continuing just building inclusive, accessible spaces, whether it's our neurosensory corner, whether it's making sure that our bookmaking station is ADA compliant, making sure we have accessibility to the space with the ramp. We're just always trying to think about what will make people feel seen, even in just the structure of what we're doing. Yeah,
absolutely. No, that's a huge part of the design of making people feel welcome, known, and thought of, considered, and actually not just as we have to do this because the law says we need to be compliant, but we considered you, we want you here, you're a part of this community in this space.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
I'm learning from so many amazing people in the community.
So what about when it comes to engaging with creatives, right? I've seen the list of events. Actually, my sister-in-law Flo's, who is wonderful and brilliant, and
Love you, Flo's. I miss you.
I know she's done writing workshops with you, and then I've seen so many others on the calendar. How does it work for you when you're, finding whether it's authors, poets, other musicians, creatives who are coming in? How do you connect with those people to say, hey, we have a event space here. We'd love to, have you be a part of our community. What does that look like?
So it's been really exciting because it's been a combination of putting myself in spaces where I can learn about what's happening in the community, but it's also been just through authentic human connection. So when I learned about Flo's, she actually reached out to me. She's the very first person that I ever spoke to when opening the Readery, and she reached out to me about doing some type of programming for the grand opening. And then from there, I learned about Anuela, who did our gardening classes.
Who does the gardening classes.
Yeah, and so that's just an example. But the thing that has been such a joy is that so many people that we've collaborated with, or organizations, once again, they know what our mission is, and they know that we stand by it 100%. It's not I pick this, I choose this, oh, I'm this, but we can't talk about this. It's, if you believe in this work and the liberation of all marginalized communities and all people, that you are going to make sure that you're also opening yourself to advocacy in those different spaces. And so the idea of connecting with people has just sort of naturally lent itself to, oh, well, you should meet this person, or this person's doing something really cool. And then just going from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, organic is just, when you have a good, strong community, and of course you're creating so much interest because this is a unique space, right? I've never come across anything like it. So I'm sure there's so many people who have the same response, and they want to know more, want to be a part of it, want to get engaged. Is there a particular workshop or moment that was really, memorable or impactful for you personally?
I think that so many of the workshops have just lent themselves to really beautiful conversations. I think obviously I love my adults and love the work that we're doing, and just engaging in all types of activities. But listening to children engage in conversation, because they really are humanity in its purest form. They ask questions and they lead with curiosity, but they also lead with a place of compassion. And somewhere along the lines, as adults, we start to build that wall and that fear, right? But our children are really teaching us, and even our teens. We have 2 amazing high school changemaker interns at the Readery, and they still lead with that same sense of curiosity, which then inspires the little ones to do the same, and vice versa. And then they're also inspiring our adults to do the same during these workshops. So I don't know if it's a particular workshop. I will say, actually, our Diwali and Holi events have been a really emotional experience for me. Witnessing my parents engage, now they live here, and engage in the participation of those bigger events, and also just see a sense of pride in their culture and identity in a way that I know they also have had to assimilate and navigate. And I do remember growing up not going to Diwali or Holi events, or even when we first moved here, wanting to find a space where I could go. So being able to facilitate that with community members from all different cultures and backgrounds, and then see the way that they embrace my family when they see them at the events, that really just, it feels like maybe I'm righting a little bit of the wrongs of the past that they experienced. So yeah, that I would say that probably every time I see my parents come to one of those events, and then community just engaging and asking them questions about their culture and identity is really impactful.
Just feeling like they're brought right into the fold, that it's such a natural fit. And
because they grew up, at least in the U.S., I witnessed this feeling isolated or pushed out of spaces. And then I also had that experience. So what does it look like to build community and then create spaces where then you can bring those who've come before you and honor them in that space and the challenges that they've gone through?
Was there ever a sense, and you can tell me if this is too personal, was there ever a sense of, my parents had to go through this, so I have to share that experience and I have to go through that isolation, like a sort of like, if they had to do this, I have to do this?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I definitely think that the hardships that they've experienced, I go through these cycles of, am I deserving of this? Why am I having this opportunity when all I want is for my parents to have had this up, right? Yeah. But then I think about the idea that what they're doing right now, especially for my children, is they're finding themselves, they're learning and unlearning as well. So they're getting more engaged in their artistic space that I was telling you about with my mother. They're becoming more engaged in this idea of social, emotional, mental wellness, because now they're seeing, oh, we're breaking generational cycles, and now I get to actually do what I've always wanted to do with me, but now with my children. So they speak Hindi to them, and they talk to them about Indian folk tales, and we celebrate Diwali, and they're doing all of these things that I hope they will feel like they can continue to do.
Right. Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Makes me so happy that this is the, journey that you're the space and time that you're in, that you can see this for both your parents and your children. That's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh man, I love it. You've got so much good creative energy around you in the space there. I was wondering too, how do you choose the books? What's that process like?
Intense. I'm just kidding. So a lot of the books I've actually used in curriculum writing, because in the past, whether it was starting a school in Seattle in a primarily refugee community or being in New York, I've always tried to find as many texts that are representative of locality, of culture, background, you name it. But so a lot of the early childhood elementary books, it's either the research that I've done or other educators who will share their insight about a book. And then I've actually had a lot of students, children come in, and they make recommendations, especially around our middle grade and our young adult books. So in the beginning of Rohi's Readery, we had mainly board books, so 0 to 4, and then our picture books. And I had a lot of 4th, 5th, middle school, high school students coming in saying, do you have any books for my age? Yeah. And I remember vividly a preteen came in after they asked me, and I said, I would love for you to, if you have any recommendations. They came back the next week with a list. I still have that paper, a list of all the different books, and knowing the work that we serve around marginalized communities. So a lot of those books have now become just beloved because they're recommended by the older kids. So it's kind of a combination, but anytime I do see a new book, I'm always really intrigued to read more and to see whether it's a good fit or not for the space.
I feel like there's, for so many reasons, so much time that you can spend. I mean, younger books for younger children, illustrations alone will have me lingering on something for so long.
Yes.
Besides, obviously, the content and the,
But those illustrations are so powerful even. So I say this to anyone who comes in the bookstore and they say, well, my child isn't reading, or they don't know how to read, or they're 3 months old, so they don't know how to read. And I'll tell them, if they're holding a book, they're reading. If they're flipping through the pages, that's habits of great readers. If they're looking at the illustrations and storytelling, which is what my older daughter loves to do, that right there is reading, because you're using all parts of the text. And if illustrations is the way to get a young child engaged as a reader, then you get as many books on that illustrator, or featuring that illustrator, because the illustrations and the representation in the illustrations now is so far better than what it has been in the past. So I love when you talk about illustrations, and keep doing that.
It's always been, that was, a big part of my experience as a child, going to the library, or if we were traveling somewhere, maybe going to a bookstore, and kind of having to be dragged away at some point of like, okay, like we spent a lot of time here, we gotta go. But just the worlds that you get opened up to. Yeah, it's always so exciting. Agreed. Okay, so talking about the future.
Yes.
I always ask this question to every guest. Is there, or can you tell me, one piece of, could be public art, could be a building, could be a historic site, could be a museum, one piece of art culture in Palm Beach County that you would, want anybody living here or visiting here to experience?
I would definitely say learn about the historic Northwest District, learn about the elders of the community there. Dr. Alice Mickens, who was an incredible educator, philanthropist, someone who is someone that I really admire, because she had a house. She actually owned many houses in the historic Northwest, but she had a house that was open to anyone wanting to talk about education, just have a safe space. Literary societies for the Black community, especially because of segregation. I would say visit the historic Sunset Lounge, Heart and Soul Park, go to Hamburger Haven, which is also known as Hamburger Heaven. It's been there over 50 years and they just reopened. Visit learn about the Styx Promenade, because the Styx community was originally, it's named after the Black community that was on Palm Beach Island before they were displaced to the Northwest District. So in see Nikisha Duret's Genius Loci there. But I would say anything and everything. Take a tour of UB Kinsey Elementary School, because that's also a very historic space. And one last thing, I know I just said a lot of things, but I just went to one of the meetings for Roosevelt High School, and their plans to make it an African American museum and research library. And the work that Annie Ruth Nelson is doing, and that so many members of Roosevelt High School alumni are doing to build this beautiful space and honor the history of Roosevelt High School. I would highly encourage people to do research on that and see how you can support that work too.
Wonderful. Thank you for that list. Yeah. I always love answering, love that answer, love, hearing what people have to say. That's a great response. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
One more thing I'm going to ask you to share, which is maybe some future advice for people who are, looking at entering the field of education, continuing or starting a journey in activism. Do you have any advice for somebody who might be entering at any phase of life, whether young or old?
I think for me, it has just been, and something that I continue to try to do, is listen and learn to those who've come before you. Listen and learn to from the people who have lived and experienced the community that you are working with. I think activism can take all forms. It can be through art, storytelling, through movement, music, writing, you name it. But oftentimes we see activism in ways where people go into a space and try to put something there versus first taking a step back and listening to who are the people in your community, what are the things that they're looking for, how can you align your gifts in your work with what the community wants, and then how can you build something together, knowing that this work can't be done in silos, and be open to the flexibility of change. What you might think you want and what the community wants, maybe 180 from what, from what is what they want. So I think that would be my biggest piece of advice that I'm still working on to this day.
That's great. No, that's wonderful advice. Certainly, staying open to collaboration, like you said, to the knowledge that comes before you and has been a part of the area that you're trying to enter. It's important to listen to. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you.
Lastly, before I let you leave, how can people get connected and stay connected with you and the Readery?
Yes. So with Rohi's Readery, you can follow us on Instagram at Rohi's Readery. We have a Facebook page. I'm sorry if you've messaged anyone out there. I'm not good on Facebook either, but we do have that too. And the website, so www.rohisreadery.com. That's also where you can see how to support us through our educational programming, through sponsorship opportunities, and also just learning more about the work that we've been doing for the past 3.5 years, and also where you can learn more about our nonprofit work, Rohi's Liberation Station, and our newest piece too, which is our traveling liberation station.
Oh, fantastic.
So we now have a bookmobile, a hybrid transportation bookmobile that we are working on and building out. We just received a grant from the Quantum Foundation toward the bookmobile. So if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out.
Incredible.
On Instagram.
Yes.
Anything.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm excited that we'll be able to share this story with our audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today and sitting with me. Thank you to our viewers and listeners. We appreciate you so much. I'm always excited to share these stories with you. And a huge thank you to our sponsor, the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County. We love them. We'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day.